Warriors came up with that earmuff defense. Garcia.
What happens when the most talked about boxer on the planet stands in the middle of a road, staring straight into the headlights of a speeding truck? That actually happened. Ryan Garcia stepped out of a parked car during a live stream, and a truck came barreling past him, missing him by inches. At the time, almost nobody noticed. It got buried under everything else going on around him. But here's the part that should stop you cold. By his own admission, years later, Garcia said that if he had taken one more step that day, boxing might have been mourning one of its biggest stars, instead of watching him become a world champion. So how does a kid who dreamed of Olympic gold at 7 years old end up spiraling in front of millions of people, live in real time on social media? And how does that same man come back from all of it? Stick around, because this is the real story of Ryan Garcia. Not the highlight reels, not the tweets. The truth underneath all of it. Let's get into it. The kid who promised himself something before the headlines, before the chaos, before any of it. There was just a kid in Victorville, California, who fell in love with boxing at 7 years old. Ryan Garcia's story starts inside his own family. His father, Henry Garcia, boxed professionally for a short time before turning his focus to training his son. From the very beginning, this wasn't a hobby that Ryan discovered on his own. It was something his father poured into him, day after day, in gyms that weren't glamorous, long before anyone outside that family knew his name. Here's something people forget. Ryan Garcia wasn't just talented, he was relentless. As an amateur, he built a record of 215 wins against only 15 losses. 15 out of 230 fights. He became a 15-time national amateur champion. That kind of dominance doesn't happen by accident. That happens because a kid is in the gym when other kids are outside playing. And at 7 years old, Garcia made himself a promise. He dreamed of representing the United States at the Olympics. That dream didn't fully play out the way he pictured it as a child. But here's the twist. Years later, that same 7-year-old's promise would come full circle in a way nobody expected. We'll get there. Garcia turned professional at just 17 years old in 2016. His very first fight was in Tijuana, and he won by knockout. Not long after, he signed with Golden Boy Promotions, the company run by boxing legend Oscar de la Hoya himself. Just like that, a teenager from Victorville was suddenly on boxing's biggest stage, fighting on cards at the Forum in Los Angeles. And the nickname stuck fast. The Flash. Because of his blinding hand speed, because of combinations that landed before opponents even saw them coming. But there was something else about Garcia that made him different from every other rising prospect. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a personality, a YouTube series, a Gatorade commercial, the first American boxer ever to land that deal. Millions of followers on social media before he'd even fought for a real-world title. He carried both the American and Mexican flags into the ring. His entrance music was a tribute to his heritage. Fans didn't just watch Ryan Garcia fight, they followed his life. Every post, every workout video, every relationship, every argument. And that's exactly where this story starts to turn. Because when your entire life is public, there's nowhere to fall apart quietly. Think about that for a second, because it matters more than people realize. Most young athletes get to struggle in private. They get to have a bad week, a bad month, a rough patch with their mental health, and work through it away from cameras. Ryan Garcia never had that luxury. By the time he was in his early 20s, he had more Instagram followers than most professional sports leagues. Every mood swing, every late-night post, every personal crisis, it all had an audience before he even had a chance to process it himself. His family situation added another layer to it too. Garcia comes from a large, tight-knit family, and both of his parents stayed heavily involved in his career well into his adult life. His father remained one of his trainers. His mother worked directly as his personal assistant for his commercial projects. On paper, that sounds like a support system most people would dream of. But it also meant that Ryan Garcia never really had a version of his life that existed separately from boxing, separately from the business, separately from the cameras. Home and career were the same thing, tangled together from the very beginning. By the time he turned pro at 17, he wasn't just a promising athlete. He was already a brand, a business, a commercial product with a face that sponsors wanted attached to their name. And somewhere in that pressure cooker, fame arriving before the emotional maturity to carry it, the foundation for everything that came later was quietly being laid. The first crack, In April of 2023, Ryan Garcia stepped into the ring against Gervonta "Tank" Davis, one of the most feared punchers in the entire sport. It was billed as a super fight, over 1 million pay-per-view buys, the kind of night that can define a career. Garcia lost. A body shot in the 7th round put him down, and he couldn't answer the count. His first professional loss. For most fighters, a loss like that is just part of the job. You take the fight, you learn, you move forward. But for Garcia, something different started happening underneath the surface. According to his own later admissions, that loss is where a downward spiral quietly began. He'd already stepped away from boxing once before, back in 2022, specifically to seek treatment for his mental health. So this wasn't new territory for him. But after the Davis fight, the weight of it all seemed to grow heavier. It's worth pointing out something here that doesn't get talked about enough. Garcia wasn't hiding from the idea that something was wrong. As far back as 2022, he was already stepping away from fight camps, already telling the people around him that he needed help. That takes a level of self-awareness a lot of young athletes never reach, especially in a sport like boxing, where showing any kind of vulnerability can be treated like a weakness by fans, opponents, and even your own promotional team. But awareness and recovery are two very different things. Knowing something is wrong doesn't automatically fix it. And for Garcia, the gap between recognizing the problem and actually solving it would end up stretching across years, not weeks. Now, here's where most fans lose the thread of the real story. So, on the outside, Garcia rebounded. Just months later, in December 2023, he knocked out Oscar Duarte in the 8th round and captured a title belt. From the outside, it looked like Ryan Garcia was back on track, business as usual, another win added to the record. But behind the scenes, something was building. And in early 2024, it all came pouring out in public for the entire world to watch in real time. The fever dream. In March 2024, Ryan Garcia was preparing for the biggest fight of his career, a title clash against the undefeated Devin Haney in Brooklyn, New York. This was supposed to be his coronation moment, the fight that would finally hand him a legitimate world title. Instead, what happened over the following weeks was something boxing had never really seen before. Garcia's social media became a stream of bizarre, escalating posts. Conspiracy theories, claims about extraterrestrial evidence, accusations aimed at other public figures, predictions of natural disasters striking major cities, marriage proposals to strangers online. It got so intense that the New York State Athletic Commission actually requested Garcia undergo a mental health evaluation before they'd let him step into the ring. Reporters covering it at the time didn't know what to call it. Some thought it was an elaborate publicity stunt to sell the fight. Others were deeply worried it was something far more serious, a genuine mental health crisis playing out live in front of millions of strangers, one tweet at a time. Garcia's own ex-wife publicly asked people to pray for him. She asked for an intervention. Let's slow down on that for a second, because it's an important detail. This wasn't just internet strangers speculating from a distance. This was people closest to him, his own family, publicly, desperately asking the world for help. When the people who know someone best start begging for an intervention in public, that's usually a signal that something serious is happening, not a marketing stunt. Around this same time, Garcia posted a video claiming he'd survived a suspected home invasion during the press tour. Days later, he posted another video titled "Clearing Things Up," except it only added to the confusion. He said he no longer had possession of his phone and claimed he was still under attack. He promised, more than once, that he'd stop posting about anything except boxing until fight night. Each time, within days, the posts would start again. Conspiracy theories, religious tangents, claims about historical assassinations, all pouring out faster than anyone could track. Even people outside boxing started weighing in, worried about what they were watching unfold. Public figures from completely different corners of the sports and entertainment world reached out, offering support, asking Garcia to hang in there. It had become bigger than a boxing story. It had become a story about a young man's mental health crisis playing out in real time, in front of an audience of millions. And here's the moment that most people missed completely. During all of this, during a live stream, Garcia stepped out of a parked vehicle directly into the path of a fast-moving truck. It thundered past him, missing him by inches. Everyone around him scrambled. At the time, it barely registered as a headline. It just got swallowed up in everything else surrounding him that month. Years later, Garcia would look back on that entire stretch and describe exactly what was happening underneath it all. In his own words, he said he was drinking every single day, even on the day of the biggest fight of his career. He said he was struggling mentally for years, and it just wouldn't stop. He said he'd gotten so lost in trying to cope with whatever was happening inside him that he felt like he was living in an entirely different universe. He also revealed something even darker from around that same period, an episode where he'd taken too many mushrooms and ended up destroying a hotel room, an incident that eventually led to his arrest. And in one interview afterward, Garcia said something that should stop anyone watching this in their tracks. He admitted that during the worst of it, he had reached a point where he was going to kill himself. That's not a headline written for shock value. That's a young man, in his own words, describing exactly how close he came to the edge. The fight. Nobody expected. So, with all of that chaos swirling around him, weeks before the biggest fight of his career, what actually happened when Ryan Garcia finally stepped into the ring against Devin Haney on April 20th, 2024? He won, emphatically. Garcia dropped the previously undefeated Haney 3 separate times over the course of the fight. It was, by nearly every measure, the single greatest performance of his career. The kid who'd spent weeks looking like he was unraveling in public delivered maybe the best night of boxing he's ever had. Think about the sheer contrast of that moment. Weeks earlier, people were genuinely questioning whether Ryan Garcia should even be allowed in the ring. Athletic commissions were requesting mental evaluations. His own family was begging publicly for help. And then, under the brightest lights of his career, against an undefeated champion who many considered nearly unbeatable, Garcia fought like a completely different person. Sharp, composed, devastating with his power shots. It was the kind of performance that made even his harshest critics stop and reconsider everything they thought they knew about him. For a moment, it looked like the ultimate redemption story. Chaos outside the ring, brilliance inside it. But this story wasn't finished delivering twists. Not long after that victory, Garcia's post-fight drug test came back positive for a banned substance. The result of the fight was overturned to a no contest. He received a 1-year suspension from the sport and a heavy fine. Just like that, the greatest win of his career got erased from the record books. Think about the whiplash of that stretch of his life. A public mental health crisis, a near miss with a speeding truck, the best performance of his career, and then a suspension that wiped it all away. All within the span of a few months. For most fighters, that combination would end a career completely. Sponsors walk away, promoters lose interest, fans move on to the next rising star. A full year without competing is brutal for any professional athlete, but for a boxer specifically, it's almost a career death sentence. Timing, reflexes, conditioning, all of it erodes without real competition to sharpen it. And Garcia wasn't just sitting out quietly, he was sitting out with his name attached to one of the biggest controversies boxing had seen in years, carrying a suspension that gave every doubter all the ammunition they needed to write him off completely. The setback that looked like the end. After serving his suspension, Garcia returned to the ring in May 2025 for a fight against Rolando "Rolly" Romero in Times Square, New York, a historic first for the sport, boxing landing in one of the most iconic locations on earth. It's worth pausing on just how strange that setting was for a comeback fight. Times Square, tourists, billboards, one of the most photographed intersections on the planet, suddenly hosting a professional boxing match. Whatever else you want to say about Ryan Garcia, promoters clearly still believed his name alone could pull off something that had never been attempted in the sport's history. Even during his lowest professional moment, sitting on the sidelines through a full year of suspension, his star power hadn't disappeared. If anything, the chaos of the previous year had only made people more curious to see what came next. But the fight itself didn't go his way. Garcia lost, dropped once, and beaten on the judges' scorecards. At this point, a lot of people in boxing had written him off completely. A year-long layoff, a drug suspension, a public breakdown that had played out for the entire world to watch, and now, a decision loss in his big comeback fight. The narrative writing itself in the boxing world was simple and brutal. Ryan Garcia, the kid with all that talent, was never going to put it together. Too much chaos, too much baggage, too much noise surrounding a career that peaked before it ever should have. Critics didn't hold back either. Even as promoters kept handing him major opportunities, plenty of voices in boxing openly questioned why a fighter with his recent record kept landing headline fights that other, more consistent boxers could never get access to. Garcia heard every bit of it, and at one point pushed back publicly, pointing to everything he'd been through, in the ring and outside of it, as the answer to why he kept getting those chances. Whether people agreed with him or not, one thing was clear. Ryan Garcia was never short of doubters. But here's the part of this story that so many people got completely wrong. Because instead of fading away, Garcia did something almost nobody predicted. He kept going. The redemption. Nobody saw coming in the months that followed. Garcia opened up more than ever before about what he'd actually been through. He started speaking directly to other men about mental health, about addiction, about the silence that so many people carry until it becomes unbearable. In one message posted publicly, he said something that resonated far beyond the boxing world. He said men are dying in silence, suicide, addiction, it's killing us, and that pretending to be fine only makes it worse. He told people that speaking up doesn't make you weak. Surviving pain, he said, is what makes you strong. That message hit differently coming from him, because everyone had already watched him live through exactly what he was describing, in real time, on their phones. This wasn't a celebrity reading a scripted mental health awareness message off a card. This was someone who had been the headline of his own crisis, now trying to turn that pain into something useful for other people, quietly going through the same thing. And then came February 21st, 2026, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas. Garcia stepped in against WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios in a fight branded The Ring High Stakes. There was an extra layer of drama to it too. Barrios was training under Garcia's own former coach, adding a personal edge to an already massive night. Garcia dropped Barrios in the very first round, and he never let go of that control for the rest of the fight. 12 rounds later, the scorecards were read. Unanimous decision. Ryan Garcia, the kid who once dreamed of Olympic gold at 7 years old, the man who nearly stepped in front of a speeding truck, the fighter who lost a career-defining win to a failed drug test, was, for the first time in his life, a world champion. His father, Henry Garcia, the same man who trained him from childhood, stood in his corner as head coach for that moment. Full circle, in the most literal sense possible. The same hands that taught him to throw his first punch as a small boy in Victorville were right there in the corner the night he finally became a champion. Garcia didn't waste time afterward talking about legacy either. He immediately turned his attention to bigger fights, bigger names, treating the win not as a finish line, but as proof that the version of him people had written off no longer existed. Whatever comes next in his career, and knowing his story, something unpredictable usually does, he's doing it now as a champion, not as a cautionary tale. What the downfall actually taught us. So here's the real question behind this entire story. Was Ryan Garcia's downfall actually his ending? Or was it the exact thing that had to happen before anyone, including Garcia himself, could understand what he was truly capable of surviving? Because here's the truth, most people miss when they talk about Ryan Garcia. They talk about the tweets, the controversy, the erratic behavior, the lost decisions, but they don't talk about a young man who was drinking every single day while carrying the weight of a world title fight, who reached a point of wanting to end his own life, and who somehow found his way back from that edge, publicly, painfully, with the entire world watching every step. Garcia has never pretended his story is a clean, simple redemption arc. He's continued to court controversy outside the ring, continued to divide opinion, continued to say things online that spark backlash. He's not a tidy Hollywood ending. He's a real, complicated human being who nearly lost everything, including his life. And instead of hiding from that, he decided to talk about it openly in front of millions of people who might be going through the exact same silent struggle. That's the part of this story that deserves more attention than any tweet or headline ever gave it. There's a bigger lesson buried in here too, one that goes beyond boxing entirely. We live in a world now where nearly everyone's struggles can become public property. A bad week can become a trending topic. A private breakdown can become a permanent headline that follows someone forever. Ryan Garcia lived through the most extreme version of that reality. His lowest moment became entertainment for strangers before he even had the chance to understand what was happening to him. And yet, somehow, he turned back around and used that same public platform to say the one thing so many people are afraid to say out loud, that he was struggling, that he almost didn't make it, and that speaking about it is what actually saved him. In a sport built entirely around projecting toughness, that kind of honesty is its own form of courage. So the next time you see a highlight clip of Ryan Garcia dropping an opponent in the ring, I want you to remember the other side of that footage. The version of him standing in the path of a truck. The version of him admitting, in his own words, that he almost didn't make it. And the version of him that walked back into that ring anyway and became a champion. Because sometimes the real fight isn't the one everybody's watching. If this story hit you the way it hit me while putting it together, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here. There are so many more stories like this one, fighters whose hardest battles happen far outside the ring, and I'd love for you to be here when we tell the next one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next story.